Surreal Ivanka Trump plays a prominent role in her father's historic Korea trip. Breaking news. Few Americans alive today have set foot inside North Korea, the isolated, nuclear-armed dictatorship sometimes called the Hermit Kingdom. On Sunday, Ivanka Trump became one of them, capping a consequential 3-day Asian trip in which the president's eldest daughter played a very public role that blended family ties with diplomatic work that is usually performed by diplomats. She pronounced the short walk to the other side of one of the world's most fortified borders surreal. Previously, at the Group of 20 Economic Summit in Japan, Ivanka Trump was everywhere at her father's side at times when other leaders' spouses were present. First Lady Melania Trump skipped the trip, in meetings where her presence puzzled other participants, and even giving an awkward of Trump's meeting with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Another of Ivanka Trump talking with British Prime Minister Theresa May, French President Emmanuel Macron, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and International Monetary Fund Chief Christine Lagarde at the G20 also went viral over the weekend. Lagarde's impatient, as soon as you charge them with that economic aspect of it, a lot of people start listening who otherwise wouldn't listen, May can be heard saying, as Lagarde nods in agreement. And the same with the defense side of it, in terms of the whole business that's been, sort of, male-dominated, Ivanka Trump then says, as a startled-looking Lagarde turns toward her, then purses her lips. The first daughter's prominence in Japan and South Korea appeared to be by design, a sign of her influence with President Trump and the current absence of influential opponents within the administration. It's not clear, however, to what end. Ivanka Trump shuttered her clothing business after joining the administration, although not right away, and has largely stepped away from her old life as an entrepreneur and social mainstay in New York. She and her husband, her ambitions are unknown. She demurs on any desire for public office. Over time, the gray area she occupies, family, employee, envoy, advocate, frequently overlaps with the work of career diplomats. But her unfamiliar, mostly, her prominence on a major foreign trip sends a message about who other countries should listen to or court, said Christopher R. Hill, a former U.S. ambassador to South Korea and other nations. It looks to the rest of the world like we have a kind of a constitutional monarchy, said Hill, who oversaw nuclear talks with North Korea at the close of the George W. Bush administration. It's increasingly problematic in terms of our credibility, Hill said. It says to our ally, Ivanka Trump had front row seats at nearly every televised session in Japan and for President Trump's visit to South Korea, where the trip to the demilitarized zone was the main event. She and Kushner, Ivanka Trump worked the room at a meeting of South Korean business leaders on Saturday, with cameras catching the smiling interactions. Secretary of State. Along the way were opportunities for the kind of branding Ivanka Trump espouses as a tool for empowering women, a main theme of her work as presidential advisor, some of it captured on her Instagram account. Shows Ivanka Trump looking into the camera as she recounts meetings with Chancellor Angela Merkel, Modi, and others at the G20, and touts a program launched by G20 members to expand access to capital for women in the developing world. It's been a great success. One of the truly great. She also posted a photo in which she and Kushner pose with Trump and Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. Today, President Trump held dynamic and productive meetings with many world leaders to discuss key security and economic issues. It is an honor to be, but the final day of Trump's trip with the history-making trip to the DMZ and an address to U.S. forces stationed in South Korea that had at times sounded like a campaign rally, produced the most dramatic images of Ivanka Trump in her hybrid and often inscrutable role. Trump invited Pompeo on stage at the Ozan Air Base, and gave a nod to traditional diplomacy by saying that a whole team would follow up on Trump's third face-to-face discussion with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. Pompeo trotted onto the stage and started toward Trump but hadn't made it to the lectern when Trump moved on to the big reveal. And you know who else I have? He asked, leaning toward the crowd for dramatic effect. Has anybody ever heard of Ivanka? He asked, to hoops from the crowd. Come up here, he commanded, as Ivanka Trump appeared at the rear of the stage. She's going to steal the show, Trump said, grinning. As Pompeo fell in beside Ivanka Trump and the two walked toward him, President Trump quipped, "What a beautiful couple," and the audience howled. Mike. Pompeo appeared to gesture to Ivanka Trump to go first, but she stepped aside and signaled for him to speak. After Pompeo, they made the trip with me, and we spent a lot of time, Trump said. Ivanka Trump's presence at the DMZ is particularly troubling, said Jenny Town, a North Korea specialist at the Stimson Center and editor of 38 North NK, a publication focused on North Korea. It was not appropriate for Trump to bring his kids to this meeting, Town said. But it was a weird mix. Trump has sidelined or fired some professional national security advisors and undercut others, including at times Pompeo and Bolton. He has never Pompeo spoke to reporters after the DMZ visit, and outlined some of the bureaucratic next steps with North Korea. Pompeo was asked whether his presence at the DMZ was a signal to North Korea, which has complained about him and reportedly sought to go around him with Trump. Pompeo. So far as I know, President Trump has always had me in charge of negotiations, Pompeo said. Simon Denier in Seoul, Seo Min Kim in Panmunjom, South Korea, and Carol Morello in Anchorage contributed to this report.
Raindrop, drop top smoking, no cooking the hot pot. Fucking on your bitch, yeah, that. Looking up, open the park.